Jeffrey Epstein was born on January 20th, 1953, in Brooklyn, New York. He grew up in a modest neighborhood, far from the world of wealth and power that would later define his life. His family lived a simple life, and like millions of other children, he spent his early years dreaming about the future. As a young boy, Epstein often looked beyond his surroundings. New York was a city of endless opportunities, filled with towering buildings, successful businessmen. One day in class, a student challenged the lesson and spoke confidently in front of everyone. The interruption quickly caught the teacher's attention and changed the atmosphere in the room. The teacher responded seriously, determined to restore order. What seemed like an ordinary classroom incident would soon lead to an unexpected meeting, one that could influence the future of a young teacher named Jeffrey Epstein. After their meeting, a friendship began to grow between Jeffrey and the wealthy businessman. The businessman saw potential in him and started introducing him to opportunities beyond the classroom. His life had changed completely. He was no longer a teacher. He was now part of the world of finance. As the years passed, his career in finance began to grow rapidly. He moved from small opportunities to larger and more influential roles within the financial world. With each step forward, his network expanded, connecting him to wealthier and more powerful individuals. His lifestyle changed completely. Better offices, bigger deals, and a growing reputation in high-level financial circles. The transition was clear. The former teacher had fully entered the world of high finance, where influence and opportunity went hand in hand. Around the early 2000s, questions began to emerge about his activities and connections. Small investigations were launched, and early concerns started to appear in the background. At first, media attention was limited, but the curiosity was growing slowly. What seemed like success to many was now beginning to attract scrutiny and doubt. In 2008, a quiet investigation began in Palm Beach, Florida. At first, it looked like a small local case, but it would soon grow into something far bigger than anyone expected. Authorities started receiving reports that raised serious questions. Detectives began quietly gathering information, trying to understand what was really happening behind closed doors. At this stage, the case was still developing in silence, far from public attention. As investigators dug deeper, more documents and testimonies began to surface. A pattern slowly started to appear, connecting different pieces of information. What began as scattered reports was turning into a structured investigation. Attention soon shifted toward a private luxury property in Palm Beach. This location became a key focus of the investigation. Investigators carefully monitored the area while continuing to collect evidence. As rumors started spreading, the media began to take interest. Journalists started asking questions, and small reports began appearing in the news. What was once a local matter was slowly entering public awareness. Legal teams became involved as the investigation expanded. Lawyers and officials began reviewing large amounts of documentation. The case was now moving deeper into the legal system. With time, more information entered the public space. News coverage increased, and public curiosity began to grow. People started questioning how far the investigation would go. What started in Florida was no longer just a local story. Attention was spreading beyond the state, and the case was becoming widely discussed. By the final stage of the Florida investigation, the case had already transformed far beyond its original scope. What began as a local inquiry had become a complex legal and public matter, followed closely by media and observers. Although the Florida case appeared to reach its final stage, the story itself was far from over. In fact, what followed would reshape the entire narrative in the years ahead. And as the years passed, the story slowly transitioned into a new chapter, one involving even more attention, wider connections, and global scrutiny. Between 2010 and 2016, Jeffrey Epstein lived a noticeably quieter and more private life compared to earlier years. He spent much of his time moving between luxury residences in different locations, maintaining a lifestyle defined by privacy, travel, and isolation from the public eye. Although public controversy from previous years had not completely disappeared, his day-to-day activities remained largely outside media attention. During this period, he continued to be connected to wealthy and influential individuals, while carefully controlling his visibility and public presence. It was a phase marked by distance from public scrutiny, but continued access to elite social and financial environments. Between 2010 and 2016, Jeffrey Epstein lived a quiet and private lifestyle between luxury residences and travel. Despite staying out of the public spotlight, his connections and past controversies remained part of ongoing attention. Private life, low public attention. Hidden luxury, isolated life. Quiet, wealthy, private existence. After years of relative silence, the Epstein case begins to resurface. Between 2016 and 2018, new elements slowly emerge from the shadows of the past. Investigative journalists restart their work, reopening forgotten archives and re-examining overlooked testimonies. Media pressure steadily increases, driven by independent reporting and revelations that reignite public attention. At the same time, authorities face growing calls to revisit earlier legal decisions and past settlements. New questions come back into focus. How could key information have been ignored? And why wasn't the investigation pushed further from the beginning? International media outlets begin to amplify the story. What was once a partially buried case gradually turns into a matter of global scrutiny. Between 2016 and 2018, both the legal and media machines slowly reactivate. After his death, multiple federal investigations focused on what went wrong inside the Metropolitan Correctional Center. Reports highlighted a combination of serious issues, including severe staffing shortages, officers working excessive overtime, and failures to perform mandatory 30-minute inmate checks. Surveillance cameras in key areas were also reportedly not functioning properly or did not record usable footage, which added to public concern. The U.S. Department of Justice Inspector General later criticized the facility's management, describing a breakdown in normal prison procedures and poor supervision of high-risk inmates. This led to disciplinary actions against several correctional officers and major scrutiny of the federal prison system as a whole. At the same time, the case triggered an international wave of speculation and conspiracy theories, largely because of the high-profile nature of Jeffrey Epstein and the powerful figures linked to past investigations. However, repeated official reviews found no credible evidence supporting claims that he was murdered or that he faked his death.